As Illinois residents head to the polls this year, they'll be casting their votes for president, their congressional representative, and state and local offices. They'll also be weighing in on 3 non-binding referendums, including one asking voters whether candidates should face penalties if they try to interfere with election workers doing their jobs. Illinois Capitol Bureau Chief Max Cotton explains this ballot question.
The first thing you'll notice on your ballot this year are these 3 advisory questions. One asks whether the state should raise income taxes to pay for property tax relief. Another asks whether the state should mandate expanded coverage for fertility treatments. And the third asks whether someone on the ballot should face civil penalties if they interfere with an election worker doing their job. Placed on the ballot as a part of an elections bill lawmakers passed during the spring session, the advisory question simply asks voters, should any candidate appearing on the Illinois ballot for federal, state, or local office be subject to civil penalties if the candidate interferes or attempts to interfere with an election worker's official duties? As for what constitutes an election worker's official duties and what type of civil penalties a candidate could face, that's not specified in the referendum. It's already a Class 4 felony for anyone who tampers or interferes with voting machines. It's also a Class A misdemeanor for anyone to refuse to comply with a lawful order from an election authority. The referendum is non-binding, so state law will not change regardless of how people vote. Lawmakers can, however, use the information to determine how to move forward, potentially with legislation creating new civil penalties for candidates who interfere with election workers. In Springfield, Max Cotton, WGEM News.